We're gonna get started. My name's Dr. Soto. We want to make sure we get everybody here as much as fit in. At the morning, we might have a couple stragglers coming up in the morning. Try to get you out on time at 8:30.
Yes.
Excellent.
You're like a
Good
bit.
evening. My name is Eric, I'm Director of Planning and Development for the town of Coventry. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We're so excited to see a room full of people. For those of you who were here, about 4 years ago? When we did our original meeting, when you were here. Nice. Excellent. Thanks for coming back, and thanks to those of you who jumping in for the first time with us and the second time around for a follow-up summer. So what we're going to do tonight, first I'm going to introduce myself. We're going to introduce the rest of the team here, and then we're going to just give you a brief presentation about who we are, what we've been doing, and what we really want to do is have a conversation with all of you. And so we're going to be breaking out into breakout groups after we do our presentation. We're going to do the lion's share of your dialogue and have a chat with you. And you get to pick which theme you want to join in on. Unless there's only a couple in one, we might pull you from another group here, but hopefully we can get some even numbers here so we can have a really hearty conversation with everyone about the various subjects that are part of our plan. So without further ado, I'm going to launch into the rest of the folks here on my team.
Hi everybody, I'm Cynthia Manzam. I'm the director of the Mansfield Downtown Partnership, and I also handle economic development for the town of Mansfield.
And I'm Patrice Carson. I'm the consulting director of community development for the town of Bolton.
Hello, David Corcoran, Director of Planning and Development for the town of Tolland.
Hi, I'm Josh Hall. I am the Yukon MPA intern.
So Connecticut's Countryside, it's a brand new name. Talk a little bit more about how we came about that name, but it's just sort of like a soft release, I guess, publicly. Doing a little bit of noting this gently throughout our publics of what Connecticut's Countryside is. But essentially, it's a collaboration of the towns of Bolton, Coventry, Mansfield, and Tolland. About 4 or 5 years ago, we got together thinking about how we could roll up our respective nickels and dimes in our budgets, and pull together our resources and find a map, a roadmap, essentially, of how we were going to collaborate any better together. And to coin a phrase I like using all the time, is find ways for the higher tide to float all boats in our region. Essentially, our intent here is really to strengthen our economic prosperity between our towns, to support our businesses, to drive folks, visitors as a destination region here, and give people a reason to live, work, and play in our 4-town region. So speaking of our plan, we hired Advanced CT to join us to serve as our consultant to assist us with the generational plan. We were in this same room just a few years back creating this plan, as I mentioned, was here. That was what was the launching pad for our plan, and the think tank and the brainstorm that we had to pull together the effort and created all the themes that we're going to be talking about tonight, which is the backbone of our plan, the backbone of our missions that we have here. The plan is, as I said, broken down into the 6 themes here, which we'll talk in more detail in just a few minutes, and we'll break out in our sessions to talk in more detail with you about that.
So there's several themes to the plan, and the first of the 6 is agriculture. And as you all know, if you live and work in communities that are being represented here, agriculture has a rich and historical and cultural foundation in all of our communities. And the plan calls for that to be built up and celebrated. And it calls for inventorying the farming assets in each town, doing things like connecting farmers to land. So in cases where the two need each other, maybe we can make that connection. Helping local farmers markets. Each of the town has some semblance of a farmers market, some more than others. And to sort of maybe connect those and help them grow and work together. Create shop local campaigns. Shop local has become extraordinarily a big item these days. Everybody wants fresh produce and wants to get it at a farm stand. So shop local, not only from farms, but other businesses as well, but under the agricultural template, that's what we're talking about. And expand agritourism in the 4 towns to draw people in, not only from our towns to visit each other, but from outside the region, and have them come and find the things that they can do here agriculturally.
So our next pillar is culture and entertainment, and a couple of things that we're seeking to do under culture and entertainment is to coordinate new regional events and to strengthen and expand some of our current events. So in effect, we want to create itineraries, across our 4 towns where people can come, check out our museums, check out the art, and just really enjoy themselves as part of an itinerary to go through the 4 towns. Another piece of that is we want to coordinate with local art groups. Almost, I think all the towns do have their own art groups, whether it's municipal based or privately based, nonprofit. And so we really want to coordinate the efforts that all the art groups are doing.
So in the region, we have the University of Connecticut located in Mansfield. This is a key asset. We seek to get students as well as faculty involved in the region, whether that be through UConn organizations such as Career Services, help get students with internships and help build their experience here in our region, help convince these students to stay in this region after their education is over and they can get their home.
And so another pillar of this plan, I suppose, is outdoor recreation. You know, we have some of the best outdoor recreation in this part of the state, and through this Connecticut Countryside Initiative, we're looking to try to market and broadcast those assets out and also using that to help drive economic development. So there's a few things that we're looking at. Among them, we've already worked to put as many trails as we can onto CT Trail Finder, and I know the CT Trail Finder folks are in the process of getting that onto their website. We're looking at trying to find ways to help make some soft investments in some of our more developed open space areas like parks or things like benches, things of that nature. You know, and ultimately the goal here is to emphasize the nice outdoors that we have in the area as a way to grow business and try to help develop small businesses. You know, maybe try to see if we can create the demand to have a bike shop or something to that effect in the area. So.
We believe that small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities. It's really important for us just to be able to understand what the needs of our businesses are. A variety of different initiatives, we'll be showing about and talking about that in just a little bit. We want to be able to connect businesses to the resources that they need to be able to thrive, and help business find their customers, drive customers to their businesses, to the region, as Cynthia was talking about itineraries, to give people a day full of things to do in the region, support our local economy.
So a big part of this effort requires visibility work, right? It's how we put our name out there, let folks know that, you know, this region exists as an area, it's a cohesive unit, and that there's things to do if you come out here. So we've worked already towards rebranding the 4-town region as Connecticut's Countryside. And some of our next steps that we're looking at are trying to develop a tourism or sort of outdoors focused website to help broadcast that message out, and then do the associated postings and things like that on social media to help drive traffic to that website. Looking at creating signage, banners, putting the name out there, right? Creating a common cohesive identity that you know, we're all in support of. And with that, we would like to eventually move towards sort of the business recruitment attraction side, developing brochures and things of that nature that we can use to help market the region to businesses for firm economic development and business retention, recruitment, and attraction.
So right now we have several current projects underway. We're right now part of one of those projects, holding a 4-town summit. Another major project that's currently underway is planning a spring 2023 Earth Day, so mark your calendars please. We're also currently in the process of, as Dave mentioned earlier, getting CT Trail Finder. We've already uploaded trails for the region to CT Trail Finder. They are in the process of going through the data, and hopefully by May it should be all up and running for anybody to see. We're also currently in the process through our consultant for marketing. We're in the process of building a regional brochure for people to come and visit the region, be able to see what we offer.
As part of the 4-town plan, one of the things we are talking about is possibly creating a regional agricultural committee. And that committee could create a campaign that we discussed earlier about regional shop local campaign. It would do things like promote tourism and events that are happening around the region, or as Eric had said, maybe plan a day and there would be something to do in each of the towns in the region to attract come and visit our area. One of the other things the agricultural committee could do would be to create some model regulations, zoning regulations that support agriculture and help agriculture do things in the towns that they may want to do, or they find maybe onerous. Maybe they can help us streamline some of that. These are just some of the sample things that we're going to discuss some of this in the breakout groups later.
So the other regional committee that we wanted to talk about was arts and culture, and I won't repeat a lot of what's up here because we talked about it before, but we have started to establish a relationship with the Northeast Southeast Cultural Coalition. And they've been attending our steering committee meetings, and they're really a great resource that we want to tap into to bring the towns together to work on spreading the word on what art institutions are already out there. Sorry, this is me still, sorry. So regional calendar, we actually, there's a couple of folks in this room that worked with me on a subcommittee before, probably right after 2019, working on our regional calendar. So that is another thing that we want to discuss with some of the breakout groups. Our goal was to have everybody attend all the events, again, getting back to the idea of help attract visitors from outside our region to come here through social media, website, and a calendar, and to promote our events. One of the things that we have already done as part of the earlier subgroup is to develop some policies about what type of events we would put on our regional calendar. So that's something that we will play off of if we start working toward really strengthening the calendar.
So our next immediate steps. Essentially, one of the biggest ticket items that we need to put into place is establishing a web presence. We have some gentle web presence by utilizing our individual town websites. We want to have something that's independent and cohesive and interactive with social media content, be able to drive information to and from our communities that we need to connect with, our businesses and our other stakeholders and social businesses. But with Nicholas College has offered to build a website for us, free of charge, utilizing their students. So it's a huge effort to do this. One, to do it without charge, but also to pull this together. It's something we're going to be working very hard with the next few months. Extra special thanks to Tim Liptrap, who saw him here, I'm sure he's sitting here. Thanks to Tim for all his support. It's a huge honor to move this project forward. Other items that we're moving forward with is coordinating events, as Josh mentioned a few minutes ago about Earth Day. April 22nd is targeted a variety of collaborative events with other initiatives that are occurring elsewhere in the region. Building our communities that are going to move some of these initiatives forward. That's what we're going to be talking to in more detail, specifically in our pillars or themes we talked about, as folks that are interested in joining and helping moving the ball forward. Also continuing to market our name, marketing the brand, marketing the logo, creating better visibility for who we really are. So with that, a brief review of what we've been doing, what we want to do. But what we want to do right now is first thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to our brief presentation. If you do want to join us for our steering committee meetings, they occur on the third Wednesday of the month at 2 p.m. via Zoom. So if you'd like to join us in those conversations, we welcome you for that. But at this point here, we want to move forward with our breakout sessions. So for those of you who don't know, there's water and cookies over there if you want to grab a quick snack before you kind of get some brain power going on here to have this conversation with you, please do so. But around the room here, you're going to see a variety of different easels with the labels of the pillars. Marketing visibility, higher education, outdoor recreation, agriculture, small business entrepreneurship, culture, and entertainment. If you have a particular theme that resonates with you, we'll bring some chairs around. We're going to have facilitators. If there's something you're interested in, you're not too sure about. So why don't we take a couple minutes for conversation. I have questions here to kind of spot the conversation. They're starters if we do need them. So, which is essentially a series of tasks. So a list of tasks that are pulled from our plan that we thought were good, jumping for a while with you, beginning the conversation, some of the things that we do are priority, the opportunity to prioritize them, whether ones we should be emphasizing more than others, putting down the list a little bit further. Are there ideas that we have The lister at this point that we just repeat the city. There's some of the kind of the core overarching themes that I kind of want to touch on and hear from you on that. So first of all, I'm going to have you. So we're kind of checking out more than
Come again,
looking for
first time again.
Sorry,
Just see what other kinds of things we can there. So the talking points, I left my sheet up front. So now there's a little bit different sheet. We're talking about plan is to create committees from different groups. And this would be
That's how staff regularly
committee with
Yes.
things of farmers markets, agritourism, regulations, those kinds of things that maybe the towns are going to be
About the regional one,
as a region, yes.
I established one here in Coventry.
Okay.
At the University of Mansfield. As a regional one.
An agricultural committee you're talking about, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, Josh,
Means that
Getting ready. What can you do essentially have brochures for each one of these, so we'll be able to have those.
I think you're mentioning each town's gonna have something. The agendas, notes, our town boundaries. And traffic strips and different services. What from those. Like I said, different layers. Stay for more. When are these opportunities?
Last Green Valley's not, I'm on their board. They haven't been great with the parks. They're good with.
Right, the town, yes. So it's.
I don't know so much what. When it comes with finding affordable housing and where we trying to figure out how we are going to do it.
About farmers, there's so many wonderful assets in here. Maybe to waste your time on the farm. No, but this is. So, let's do this. Cheers. Excuse me. I haven't mentioned yet, but.
Sharing of existing resources out there. So, I know the behavioral. I have identified that.
So start getting it. That's the environment. A lot of
I realize it.
Yes.
They're, finding things. Like they didn't move their operations in town because they have such a, pool of
So, they have a nice kitchen down there.
they want to move this. So it's special. So it's a good thing. It's not, I don't think that's the only.
Go to the tomato bed. If not more. You said it's all.
In Vermont.
Yeah. I could, I'll send you the next time, it's like, I want to kind of. The way they work is they yeah, beats and one, once you turn it off, makes the little bruise. So they got those well, they are, and so no, so like the hospitals, hold on. Instead of, you know, that the hospital is trying to connect with it's not academic, it's an assistant, so there's there. There's another
I still might be able to. Sounds like you.
Yeah, but then like one of them. The virtues is so.
Right, if you don't have the maps where you or businesses.
Behind the gardens, we just need to place the show. We need to place for months. We need to place for them. It's easy, you know, great one.
We're gonna go back now, it's gonna stay where we are, so we can process it, move it all around.
So.
Okay, so part of this exercise is to see really who has the worst handwriting. All the team members. I'm gonna really admit it.
It was.
So, okay, so we're gonna do this. The representative from each team, each breakout group, is going to give a quick description of some of the high points, some of the takeaways that were from each group. And then we're gonna kind of just sum up from there and talk about how we can continue this conversation working together. So, I guess I'll go first. So if you could follow along here. So I had small business and entrepreneurship. So interesting topics from my perspective, from a person who permits businesses and works with businesses to get them started, was the importance of home-based businesses. That's something that we do relate to an awful lot in our zoning regulations and our day-to-day permitting, is that our economic vitality does equate to beyond just brick and mortar businesses, but to home-based businesses, virtual businesses. And as we've known in the last couple of years, the emphasis has been off of brick and mortar and with home-based businesses. And so where can we facilitate, one, streamline permitting? Where can we facilitate connectivity and synergy between these businesses? How can we get them to communicate with one another? How can we get to know what their needs are? Business surveys, business visitations. We were speaking of how the Economic Development Commission is a key ambassador for our town in connecting one-on-one with businesses. And it's something our Coventry EDC does very well with, and I'm sure many of the regions as well. So how can we leverage that further? Not just going and having a conversation, but how do we dig deeper to find out what are the definitive needs of those businesses and bring them back to the EDC, bring them back to staff, and where can we gain traction with the information we're gaining to respond to those needs of the businesses. Business website lists, having things that are searchable. So if you want to support your businesses locally, how are you going to do that? You want to find a hub to be able to know where your local businesses are. Having the ability to do the keyword search, know if you're looking for a plumber, you look under P. Doing it in the easiest way possible. Looking at sharing and links of resources, being a better linkage and a better conduit for that information. We spoke about the chambers being a great resource for businesses. How can we get that to the businesses and also know the chambers exist, the things that they're doing, have business to business connectivity, not just business to town staff connectivity, but businesses within the same realm. It could be construction businesses, it could be other service businesses, and how they can do well and synergize between the two of them. We talked about housing. Obviously, that's a key ingredient for anything we're doing here for well-being of our communities, is the ability to have attainable and affordable housing for everyone, your senior, a young family, an empty nester, what have you. So that does key into this. But that also keys into the need for appropriate growth planning and infrastructure, making sure that we are growing in the right location in the right manner, have the proper tools to support that, and have the proper infrastructure to support that as well. And that could take decades to facilitate, and heck, it just took us about a decade to facilitate some infrastructure growth on our west end of town as it connects with Bolton. So all good things take time here, but we have to be patient, but also be vigilant at the same time with how we move forward with that. We also talked about business mentorship, how businesses that are in business right now and are successful can share their wisdom. Finding ways of getting information of just how to connect with other people to find ways of doing business. And quality of life. And I think that's something that we are extremely rich in this region and in this part of Connecticut. And I'll leave it on that positive thought.
I'm gonna jump in on agriculture from you because there's a couple of common themes I'm sensing here. You talked about housing and the affordability of housing. We talked about some similar things, but also a right to farm ordinance in the agricultural area, so that housing and farming. We talked about that the fact that there is an existing agricultural committee, but not all towns are part of it, and they're having issues with having enough members. So maybe the thing to do is to add the other two towns, so the membership problem is solved, and the committee problem is now regional, so that would be a great synergy. We talked about also, in addition to the right to farm ordinance, perhaps maybe looking at some of the regulations regarding farming and street side, farmers stands and those kind of things. We talked a little bit about public relations, how do people, having people know where their food comes from, knowing your farmer. We talked also about advertising, those kind of things, but those have to be individual farm decisions. Not all farms want tourism, for example, or want people coming there or whatever, and they have to do it at their pace and on their level, which was interesting to me because I didn't realize that was the thing. We talked about the farmers market and building those things up in each community. Some communities have them, not all communities have a farmers market every single week. We talked about farm to table events, and those might be a good idea to get to know establishments who use fresh produce, and also help the farms use their produce in a way where it benefits them. I think that's sort of the sum of it. We talked about, including an agricultural section in the plans of conservation and development in the four towns, public relations in farming. But I think the most important thing was being able to figure out that we might already have the small bit of a committee formed, and to enlarge that, and then to begin by looking at the local regulations and ordinances, and then let them.
So I think the theme is we have a committee for that.
And I have all their names.
We have all the names. So what's next?
So, for higher education, there was several key takeaways. One big takeaway was transportation. Students, a lot of them might not have vehicles, they might live on campus, so they mostly just walk to class. We have to solve that issue if we want to get involved in the region, whether it be like trying to figure out bus service or carpooling, or just trying to find resources to provide them the ability to go to our events and try to get to businesses in our area. Another key takeaway is potentially connecting to alumni services, because we want students to stay in the region. Local alumni that chose to stay in the four towns are probably the best ambassadors we have to convince these students to stay here and be able to give advice. Another thing is establishing a big campus presence. We can try to do transportation, we can try to connect to alumni, but if we don't have that on-campus presence, it doesn't work much. So be able to go to career fairs, trying to connect to clubs, trying to go to all these different events, and be able to set up and say, hey, we're connected to Countryside, we want you to be here and get involved. So those are the key takeaways that we had from hiring.
I can jump in on outdoor recreation. So a few items we threw out here. So there's a lot of events that already kind of happen that have to do with outdoor recreation that we think maybe we can either expand or grow from one town to four towns, or add on to. The Last Green Valley does a Walktober event, and we thought maybe we could sort of expand that in some way. Another town does a tour de farms where they promote cycling between various agricultural opportunities, and we thought maybe there's a way to expand that to the four towns. Then somebody else pointed out, in the four towns we have a lot of historic mills and old sites like that, potentially you could do some sort of historic
So since we're on your side of the room, Mindy, I first want to recognize Mindy Goslin and Manuel Medina, two of my staff from the Coventry Land Use Office. We're part of the Connecticut's Countryside staff team today, did a wonderful job with facilitating, so I just want to recognize them and thank them for joining you today. So,
So we were marketing visibility, and the number one thing that we talked about was the website, as what was mentioned earlier, is in development. And our number one point for that was maps. Just being able to go on there, pull up a map, and be able to see businesses or trails. Just being able to pull that up on a cell phone compatible website and being able to see that on your phone and to be able to zoom onto that on your cell phone. As well as showing where the parking is at those locations, because you could know where the building is. You have no idea where to park. You could be circling that thing trying to find it. And as well as just visuals on the website, so whether that's the form of story maps or just photos to get people captured, just scroll through the website more. And then making a website is great, but also having that content first, because if you're making a website and there's not much content on the website, then people may not go back in the future. So as soon as they visit that website for the first time, have a lot of information already populated in there so they can explore right when they visit for the first time. We also talked about community connection. So while you're eating lunch in Mansfield, you could see a QR code and go to a trail in Coventry. So kind of being able to connect to the different towns when you're utilizing one of these other pillars, whether that be through a QR code or a printed brochure. Another thing that we talked about was potentially making a car magnet or a window cling. An emphasis on a window cling, because that could also go in business windows and also people's cars, to get the logo out there so people can see it, look it up, then find our website, and then explore the region. In relation to the brochures and tabling at booths, more emphasis on a QR code. And the QR code kind of allows that website or whatever that QR code's connected to be constantly updated, so it can be this living document, and it doesn't need to be a brochure that's printed all the time when a new business comes about. Additionally signage, so signs on major roads or trails to let you know, oh hey, like we have this great pizza place that's 0.5 miles away, because otherwise people may not know that. And to also mention the Connecticut countryside's specific name on certain signs throughout towns or on specific brochures, to have that name out there, and not just specifically mentioning a certain business. We also mentioned a scavenger hunt, so having a scavenger hunt between the different towns, and then once you and have it over multiple days, so it's not super competitive all on Mondays and people speeding around. And like at the end, they can get some sort of swag item that has the logo or the Connecticut countryside name on it. So it's still also it's getting people out in the community, but also kind of further promoting our name by giving them something with the name on it. We also discussed the Visit CT website and kind of getting some material on there, and then also creating a YouTube channel that has little interviews on specific pillars, so like visiting a farm, interviewing a farmer, going to a new local business, and reposting that on the respective social media sites that Connecticut Countryside decides to go with. And having an audio logo and video logo that's like at the beginning of every single video, so it's kind of recognizable as like that certain sound. And also Yukon, so people from different areas, so utilizing again those QR codes at parent weekends or grad events or athletics, whatever is capable, because I know certain university things cost money and they have promotions, but like where we are able to get that in there to promote when the students' parents come or their siblings come to be like, oh, like my parents are here, I'm gonna go to the adventure park because my sister would love that. And then kind of emphasizing maybe some Airbnbs and hotels and kind of getting our information into those venues. And also just us having a regional perspective. So when people just talk about one town, now kind of change your perspective, it's a region, and kind of think about, instead of, I think Berkshire's was an example of just, they refer to it as that region, not necessarily that specific town. So that kind of like perspective change. Yeah, that's about it.
Nice. All right, in the essence of time, we'll just hit the high points here for culture and entertainment. We talked a lot about the calendar. I know some of that goes into the visibility group, but one of the things that it's great to have a calendar, but make sure that the word gets out if there is a calendar. We talked about identifying artists in our region, also supporting them with funding. So we often ask artists to do things, but we don't fund them. Finding space as well for artists is important. We talked about working with the Cultural Coalition that we've started working with as a team over the last year or so. We talked about a public art trail to identify the public art throughout Connecticut's countryside. We also talked about, in sort of the pure entertainment area, creating areas where you can do several things. This was Missy's suggestion. So you've got cornhole and you've got axe throwing and you've got other things that are in a space. And I think that's become very popular, especially in larger buildings like old mill buildings, and we have several of those in our area. We also talked about showcasing all our cultures, particularly through food. And then lastly, we talked about asking our state and other funding agencies to support our Connecticut countryside efforts by assisting with funding our initiatives, emphasizing the regional focus that we have. That is something that I think the state is really trying to promote, is how do we work together as regions. And that's it.
Just when I thought we couldn't take it to the next level from 4 years ago when we created this plan, I think we've done that tonight by really taking it to the next level, by talking about the next conversation, talking about the next steps that we're doing here. What you're seeing here is a layout of a plethora of ideas that move the plan forward, that freshen the ideas, that create some prioritizations, create some reality checks. Because if y'all remember, we released this plan at the beginning of the pandemic. And we had to actually incorporate a section that says, well, how are we gonna contend with that? And what we knew then and what we know now. And so the concept of perspective is certainly important at this point. So the next conversation that we have is the ongoing conversation with you. For those of you who came here today, who wanted to talk about things that are important to you, things that resonate with you, things that inspire you about your region, of all the pillars that we have here, we would like to continue that conversation. So we would like to find ways in order to do that. So the plan clearly calls out for the development of subcommittees. We have our steering committee that meets once a month on that, third Wednesday at 2 p.m. But we have what we call kind of our worker bee committees that we're going to be moving some of these initiatives forward in small ways, maybe in large ways. And we're firm believers of many hands making light work. I know there's a lot of committee members here, commission members, people who are already tasked to the max at this point of all the things that they're doing, and not to ask somebody to do something more and to press more and ask them to contribute more. But we'd like to find ways to continue that conversation as we move forward with the work on our initiatives here. So when you reached out and RSVP'd, most of you did so, and others who came and just joined in today, we're very appreciative of that. So if you don't mind, we would like to continue to communicate with you. We're building our email communication list, we're building our contact list, our constituency list, and we're calling partners. And we'd like to be able to continue these partner conversations as we move forward to push these balls forward and all these wonderful ideas that we have. So if you're all okay with that, and would like us to continue that conversation, I'm seeing nodding heads and so forth, that's great. Because I think this is a room full of people who obviously came here for a reason, and we want to continue that energy moving forward today.
Eric, I have a quick question
Yes.
about the list. We're all eagerly looking at who was listing. Are you going to share with this group the individuals who have signed on to that list?
Nope,
Because
so- I think what might be an easy way, right, and I'm just shooting for the hip here, it might be a way of just putting it onto our webpage in some way. Some of this information we gained today, we build it, attendees. We're gonna obviously filter through all of these and put these all together. So have it in a one-stop shop
so
place for
that
people to get
those of
that.
us who are interested are able to know who others are. Website works fine.
Yep, we took notes on who's in each committee or group, breakout group and so forth. And so I think it's important to have that information. We'd like to find the best way to communicate that with people. Yes, sir.
Spammers love it when you post a list of email addresses.
Oh, no, we wouldn't post email lists. We would do it the appropriate way. We'll find a way to do it that doesn't broadcast people's names on the minutes, but we'd like to be able, or have it available at the town offices there for people to communicate with that. So we want to find ways to share this information, but also not cross boundaries that we're not appropriate. So, no, we wouldn't share people's email lists on the web. That would be appropriate. Any other questions? Yes, Richard?
I have a little observation in seeing all the things that everyone has shared, and we talked about it in our group, but, and I know there are some paid employees that are carrying on this task of this four-town coalition that will benefit us all. But it seems to me that it might behoove the group at somewhere down the line to have someone who is paid to coordinate some of the efforts. And is that happening? I mean, how, you're all doing what you can, but you have all your other jobs and burdens and responsibilities. It would seem that to have somebody who would be a paid coordinator to oversee this, is that any discussion that is?
So the plan does call for a standalone 501c3, a municipal nonprofit, a standalone organization that would have staff. In some ways, almost modeled after the Connecticut Main Street program. That has, you have a steering committee, you have your other committees that work on the various aspects that support the Main Street, economic restructuring, design, organization, promotion, support, that report back to the steering committee. And then you have an executive director, a staff person, or a series of staff people that would serve that. That's perhaps a little further down the road. What we thought was a great leap moving forward was to bring in Josh, our MP student, who's been, what we needed was a quarterback. In many ways, we staff do the best we can with the resources we have, but with somebody to kind of pull everything together and move these initiatives forward, and that's kind of the baby steps we're taking here. But that's not so far off, and that is not.
My question dovetails with that. Do you see a timeline, 12 months, 24 months to be incorporated? What do you think?
I think we've really talked
We
about
haven't
that.
gotten that far, I wouldn't say.
That's what you need to apply for grant funding.
Yeah, I think we have a plan and then we have action items and we have an implementation matrix that does have timeframes associated with that. I think that's a little further out for us, and to be able to assign a date or a timeframe on that might be a little presumptive at this point, but I think it's important to do that. To be able to say, where do you want to have that target? Is it 3, 4, 5 years? Because then you know the steps that you need to actually get there.
One of the things that's in the air, we're experiencing this in North, is that there's money out there. And there's an imperative, I think at the state level, Jen can verify this or not, to get money east of the river. And that's where we are. I don't know how long that imperative will last. There's a lot of money to be gotten right now. So the bridge between right now and when we are able to apply for it, the distance seems important.
Part of the factor here is we have 4 individual municipalities that are working wonderfully together. We want to continue to maintain it. And these are big decisions when you're looking at making expenditures and you know, where the revenue comes from. To do that in a mindful way, so we're honoring the process and the system that would facilitate that. So, but it is something that we do have to put into motion. It is in our plan. Let's just speak to that. Other questions? Yes.
When we look at cultural and entertainment, are we including the schools? Because if you think about it, artists get developed by the schools initially. Musicians get developed by the schools. So if there are events that the schools are having, they're having an open house for their art, or there's a musical going on, you know, that might be the thing. If I haven't seen Annie in a while or something, I'll go to Coventry, or what's Tolland doing, or what's Mansfield doing.
Yeah, we have it on there, actually.
So it's actually on.
It's on there. That lovely handwriting.
Down here. Penmanship is a lost art. So. But that's good. I mean, because if you look at it, developing, you know, whether we're developing artists or, you know, cooks or welders or whatever, you know, we had the conversation about higher education versus trades. It starts in the schools. So engagement with those schools to get the kids to think about staying in Connecticut, because it's great to live in Boston or New York or someplace, but you got to deal with Boston and New York. Why not just visit them and come back and live in Connecticut for your love? So you can stay next to your parents, you know, so they don't. But living in New Jersey, we don't know what's happening.
So you're all free to go to grab water, if there's any cookies left, which doesn't like too many, so you did a good job with that too.